Good evening, all. On behalf of Geo Institute, I warmly welcome you all to the second session of Geo Institute Masterclass series on AI and data science. The whole series we have designed with the 5 masterclasses. And in the first session, we have explored Decoding Future with AI and Data Science by Dr. Shailesh Kumar, who is Dean at Geo Institute and Chief Data Scientist at Reliance Geo. Today's session is the second session on the topic Leading in the AI Era, the Human Machine Alliance. I'm delighted to invite today's session moderator, Mr. Bharat Reddy, to welcome our distinguished speaker and give a brief overview of the session. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
Yeah. Good morning, all. Myself, Bharat. I lead Office of Academic Services at Geo Institute. And today, I welcome you all for today's masterclass at Geo Institute, Leading in the AI Era, the Human-Machine Alliance. We are delighted to have each of you here as we explore one of the most defining transformations of our times, the evolving partnership between humans and intelligent machines. As we stand at crossroads of technology progress, the question is no longer whether AI will shape our world better, how as leaders, researchers, and decision makers will shape AI's impact on our society, economy, and future. So let me introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Roy. Dr. Roy is an internationally recognized futurist and AI researcher based at 𝘔𝘂𝗵𝗵𝗶 Center, Tel Aviv University. He has held senior roles as head of methodologies at SparkBehind, an AI startup driving strategic insights, and as a senior researcher at X Prize Foundation, where he worked on breakthroughs initiative tackling humanity's grandest challenges. Dr. Roy led research on human life extension with bold vision of halting or even reversing the aging process. In fact, this initiative laid the foundation for the 2024 X Prize Reverse Aging Competition, valued at an extraordinary $101 million. He is also authored of acclaimed books, The Guide to Future and The Rulers of the Future, and continues to advise governments, corporations, and global organizations on AI, future forecasting, and innovation. Among his pioneer works, he even developed generative AI-based simulation systems, digital twins for world leaders, to model complex geopolitical scenarios. With his unique ability to blend deep research, bold foresight, and practical application, Dr. Roy is here to guide us fascinating realm where human intelligence and artificial intelligence co-evolve. And today he will lead us to a masterclass on leading in the AI era, the human-machine intelligence. In this session, we will uncover how future leaders can harness AI not as a replacement for human creativity and judgment, but as a force multiplier for human potential. So please join me welcoming Dr. Roy. It's over to you, Roy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Bharat, for inviting me here and for for presenting me. Let me start straight away with the presentation. The time is short and we have so much to cover. So, hello guys, so nice to meet you and thank you again for inviting me. I want to talk to you today about leading the AI era and where we actually going, what's actually going to happen as far as we can understand in AI, at least in the near future, because it's very difficult, obviously, to forecast beyond that. So before we go there, though, because before we go into the future, I want to take a sneak peek at the past and at the present of AI, and also to see just how much you know about AI. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I would appreciate it if you could open the chat box and give some answers. Tell me what you think. Let's start with this pop quiz about AI. So here's the first piece of information. This phone, the telephone, took around 75 years to reach 50 million users. The next big invention, the radio, took around 38 years to reach 50 million users. After that, the TV took around 13 years, the internet took around 4 years, the smartphones took 3 years to reach 50 million users. Now let's talk about ChatGPT. How long has it taken ChatGPT to reach 50 million users? Are we talking about 1 day? Are we talking about 1 month? Are we talking about 1 year? So you're very welcome to write in the chat your answers. If, by the way, if that's even possible, I'm not quite sure that's possible. Okay, so I see questions and answers. Okay, so I see people responding 1 day, 1 month. Okay, 1 day. So we have Stan, we have Kankatin, we have Godrai, we have Sharma, 1 month. Okay, so nobody even speaks about 1 year. It's obviously that's either 1 day or 1 month. And the correct answer in this case is indeed 1 month. It's not 1 day, but it's still only 3% of the time it took the other technologies, the smartphones, to reach 50 million users. Now another question: how many weekly users does ChatGPT have today? So is it 100 million? Is it 400 million? Is it 800 million? And by the way, guys, I see that the chat is disabled for some. You can either use the Q&A part in order to give some answers, or it's okay if you can't answer. Okay, so I see it 800, 100 million, 400 million. And the correct answer is 800 million. 800 million weekly users. So honestly, that's around 10% of the world's population. And the people who don't use ChatGPT use Claude. And those who don't use Claude use Grok. Don't use Grok, use Perplexity, or use Gemini, or use Qwen, or use DeepSeek, or any other engine out there. According to a recent research by MIT, we have around 90% of employees who are today working with generative AI engines in the work. They don't always tell their employers or their managers about that, but 90%, according to MIT at least, are using this are using generative AI at work, at least in the United States. Nita, I see that you raised your hand, so you can ask in the Q&A, and I'll answer you if that's possible. But in the meantime, I'm moving forward because we have another question. What grade did ChatGPT obtain in the Uniform Bar exam? The Uniform Bar exam is the exam that lawyers have to take in California in order to be able to represent their clients, to become real lawyers, so to speak. So are we talking about Are we talking about the bottom decile, as it reached the bottom decile, meaning that 90% of human beings have obtained better grades than ChatGPT? Are we talking about middle, 50-50? Are we talking about the top decile, meaning that it has surpassed 90% of the humans who took this test in the test? Okay, so Nita says bottom decile. Anyone else? Okay, Avini says bottom decile as well. Oh, but then we have an anonymous attendee who says top decile, and Param says top decile as well. So right now it's around the tie between the bottom decile and the top decile. And okay, now it's total tie: bottom, middle, and top. Let me show you the results. And this is really fascinating. It also tells you a lot about the evolution of AI. Because when ChatGPT only emerged in November 2022, you can see the benchmarks, meaning the grades that it has obtained here. So you can see that in the GRE, for example, in the verbal part of the GRE, it surpassed 63% of humans, of the humans who took the test. And when it comes to evidence-based reading and writing in SAT, it surpassed 87% of students. And when it comes to the uniform bar exam, it only reached the bottom decile. That's it. So it was worse than 90% of the human lawyers. But that was just when it emerged in November 2022. After it emerged, it was called ChatGPT 3.5. And a few months later, it was replaced by ChatGPT 4. And ChatGPT 4, let me show you what happened when it was tested on the same questions. In the GRE, it leapt up to the top 1%. In the SAT, it went up to the top 7%. And in the uniform bar exam, where its predecessor has only gotten to the bottom decile, suddenly it leapt to the top decile. And it did the same in math and in biology, statistics, psychology, quantitative and physics and chemistry, and so on and so on and so on. It only took 4 months for this great leap in its capabilities. That's how quickly things change today when it comes to AI. And that's why in a way, you're all right. I mean, it started in the bottom decile, but very quickly, it got to the top decile. And the human mind has great trouble coming to grip with this sort of pace. It's very difficult for us to grasp that this baby that we had, just 2 years ago, it was a baby. It was in a very real way an idiot when it came to the uniform bar exam. 2 years later, it's suddenly a genius. It came from zero to hero in just 2 years. It's very difficult for us to face that kind of pace. Here's another question. There was a study a year ago on generalist medical doctors. And they took generalist medical doctors, the ones who study for 7 years or so in the academy to get their medical license. And they asked them more than 1,000 questions, real questions that human patients ask their medical doctors. And obviously, they also asked the AI, Google Palm Med 2, that's the name of the model that they use. It's a lot like ChatGPT, but it's trained on medical advice and medical books. So who obtained the higher score? Medical doctors or artificial intelligence? Let me show you the results. These are the results as they are presented in the study. It's from Nature Medicine in 2025. The study itself was published in 2025, but was held in 2024. And you can see here, the yellow indicates that AI gave these answers. The blue indicates medical doctors. So when it comes to answers that better reflect the consensus, AI is actually better than generalist medical doctors. When it comes to better reading comprehension in the answer, AI beats human medical doctors. Better knowledge recall, AI beats them. Better reasoning, the thing that separates us from animals. And it turns out that the AI does better than generalist medical doctors in this aspect of the answers. But of course, we're not children. We understand that nothing comes for free, nothing is ever the best. So here's the next question: whose answers were more probable to cause harm to the patient? Was it the AI or was it the medical doctors? Let me show you the answer here as well, because it's quite astonishing. What you see here is that there are several ways to decide which answer contains flaws. So when it comes to providing more inaccurate or irrelevant information, AI gives more inaccurate or irrelevant information than human medical doctors. But human medical doctors omit more information in their answers. Human medical doctors have more demographic bias than AI. And when it comes to greater likelihood of harm, it turns out that the human medical doctors, in their answers, there is greater likelihood of harm that that answer will cause harm. And if harm is being caused, then the answer by the human medical doctor will, there is a greater extent of harm. More harm will actually be dealt because of that answer. Now, this is earth-shattering. I can't figure out another way to put it. Even though it's just generalist medical doctors, so they're not the specialists, they're not ophthalmologists, they're not endocrinologists, and so on. They're generalist medical doctors, but that's still huge because it indicates that we can offload some of the cognitive work that human medical doctors do today. We can offload it to the AI, and it will actually do a better job at it than the humans do today. I want now that maybe I've given you a few things to think about. I want now to look at the greater trend, because I showed you a few examples of how quickly things change and move forward. But I want to look at the greater trend and trajectory in history that we are facing today. And that way we can better understand where it's taking us, where the future is going. And in order to do that, I want to separate the ages that we're facing into 4 ages. The first age is that of the librarian, the age of librarians, which we have lived through in the last couple of decades, and it's now coming to an end. The second age is that of consultants, AI consultants, like ChatGPT when it just emerged, and the age of agents, AI agents, that we are now going into in 2025. And the next stage is that of managers, where AI can actually become your manager or the manager of an entire company and can manage AI agents as well. And there are, there is speculation about the ages that come after the age of managers, but this isn't the lecture for that right now. That's more about the AGI, because after managers, we're going to have a AI that can have even greater effect on the economy. But for now, let's focus on librarians, consultants, agents, and managers. So what is the age of librarians? When I was a student a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago, and my teacher told me that she wants me to do do work on to write a new essay on the French Revolution. I said, no problem. I went to the library, and the librarian referred me to some of the books on the shelves, and I had to read through these books. I had to study them. I had to search for the information about the French Revolution, and then I had to take all of this information together, crunch it in my brain, and produce a new essay. That was the age of librarians, when the librarian, the human being, or the librarian, which was Google, the largest librarian ever, it directed us to the sources, but we had to read them. Now, this age is practically over. And we see Google, it's not really dying, okay? But I exaggerated here, obviously. But 70% of web surfing in the last 20 years, began in the search engine, which Google most usually. It's no longer the case. Even Google is confessing that people are now starting to use ChatGPT or Gemini or any other AI engine to ask them questions and the AI provides answers, or it provides them with answers based on the information that it discovers in the internet. But the people are not the ones doing the surfing anymore. They are not the ones going to the sources. They are just getting the information that the engines read from the internet. So that brings us to the age of consultants, which began in 2022, obviously, with the emergence of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT came out, and immediately people started asking it questions. Any kind of question, all kind of questions. It was incredible. They asked it about their medical situation. They asked it about the stock market. They asked about their love life, anything and everything at all. And the reason that's so astonishing is that the answers that they received were bad. They were very bad answers. I mean, they looked very credible. They looked, they had the correct jargon, the correct way of pronunciation, and so on. It expressed itself as an expert in the field would. But if you were a real human expert and you read through those answers of ChatGPT, you very quickly noticed that it was just, well, lying out of its teeth. I mean, it was just spreading nonsense. In many, many cases, there were hallucinations, misinformation in there. And people still wanted more of that advice because we yearn for advice when it is phrased in the right way, in a way that sounds credible. Now, even at that time, the artificial consultants already had an impact on the economy and the world of work. And I want to show you some of those uses and the impact. So here's a quote from a friend of mine. Her name is Anne, and I talked with her at around that time when ChatGPT, well, about a year after ChatGPT emerged. And here's what she told me. She's a manager. She actually owns a company of internet writers, internet journalists. So they write on the internet, and they write news, they write stories and news items on the internet. And here's what she told me. She says that what's happening in the field is insane. She says that ChatGPT is already the content that it produces is just as good as the content that people are writing. And she's thinking like a manager. How much should I be paying? So she says that ChatGPT, the original one, the 3.5 ChatGPT, was equivalent to writers that received 3 to 5 cents per word. And ChatGPT 4 is equivalent to a writer that receives 5 to 7 cents per word. And it's smart, and it's nicer, and it's more communicative than the average writer. So what does she do as a manager when she realizes that this is the case? She says, and I quote her here, "We are making a crazy shift in our business." And what kind of shift? Here's what she tells me. They're giving you the screenshots here with her permission, obviously. She says, "We're firing all the writers and editors, but we're creating a new profession that she's called AI Wrangler." Now, what is an AI Wrangler? An AI Wrangler, or a Wrangler, is like a cowboy in Texas. He is the kind of guy who goes into a rodeo and he looks around and he sees the bulls, and then, this is only my imagination here, he leaps on one of the bulls' backs and he holds that bull by the horns, and he moves the horns around until the bull runs just the way he wants it to. And if the bull does what the wrangler tells him to do, then our wrangler suddenly has the entire power, all the power of a bull between his legs. And if the bull doesn't do what the wrangler tells him to, then the wrangler needs to figure out how to talk to the bull nicely, how to threaten it, how to make it do what he wants. And if the bull still doesn't do it, then our wrangler has to jump to another bull that will get the job done. So we all need to be, in the age of consultants especially, we all needed to be AI wranglers. We needed to jump from bull to bull to bull, from one cow to another. Of course, when I say bull, I mean an AI engine. So if ChatGPT could do it, great. You had the power of ChatGPT, of a great consultant. If ChatGPT couldn't do it, you had to go to Gemini, you had to go to Perplexity, you had to go to any other engine that could get the job done. But you had to try and to try and to keep leaping between the bulls that you write. If you knew how to wrangle the textual artificial consultants, you could do wonders. And you can still do it. You can write perfect emails in any language. You can understand any document in any language. You can get the gist of long reports very quickly. You can just feed them into the ChatGPT or 𝘚𝘠𝘂𝗵𝗵𝗶 or any other engine and get a summary of what the report actually says. And if you want it in Hindi, you can get it in Hindi. If you want the engine to explain to you without jargon, without technical jargon, you can get that as well. If you want it to explain to you like as if you were 12 years old, I do that sometimes, then it's to me as if I were a boy, then it will give it to you this way. You can come up with new and novel and innovative ideas, and anything else, everything in between. And here's another question that I'm going to answer myself. In Goldman Sachs, they have to do IPO prospectuses every year. They have to do dozens, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of this kind of work. And that means they have to do due diligence on their clients, on the clients' companies. So they started using ChatGPT around 2 years ago. How much has ChatGPT AI decreased the work required to do this IPO process? Has it decreased the work by 35%, 65%, or to 95%? It decreased it by 95%, guys. Okay? So if the original time was 2 weeks for 6 employees working together, then now it's barely a day for one person. That's the level of efficiency that we can get if you know how to work with those consultants. Then they can help you get creative ideas. Even in 2023, we already saw that when they are examined versus MBA students in Wharton University, then the ideas generated by ChatGPT-4 are actually more of higher quality and more innovative than the ideas suggested by the students. And it's not just in text. It began in text with ChatGPT, but very quickly those artificial consultants appeared in many modalities. For example, in drawing and painting, in visualization, like this painting that was actually drawn by an AI, and still won the first prize in a national competition in the United States. But you do need to guide those consultants. You need to tell them what you want. You need to be able to explain it to them. And then they can give you results. And they can be great results. For example, I asked the engine here to give me a giraffe and bacteria hybrid. This is what it gave me. I asked it to give me a samosa and a giraffe hybrid, and this is what it gave me. That's not as good. So I had to guide it. That's better, but still not very good. And guide it, that's even better. And guide it until it finally gave me the samosa giraffe hybrid that I think is the best. And obviously you may not agree with him, but that's part of the thing. You need to operate your own critical thinking and we each have our own taste. And if you do it right, you win big. Here's another example. This company was under fire about a year ago when it admitted on Twitter that we pay our artist $15,000 a month. Why are they paying him so much? Because he makes around 600 cards per month. And those cards look pretty good, right? I mean, they look quite good. And the other artists, the human artists who don't use AI, they went berserk. How come you're doing this? How comes you're encouraging using AI for art? And the company said, guys, what do you want from us? We are concerned about our clients, about the players. They want more cards. They want the cards that look better. We're giving it to them. We're very fair in our payments to the artist. If you can do it as well at that level and then in that frequency, generate hundreds of cards every month, that's great. You will get thousands of dollars as well. But if you don't use AI, you're not even in the game. Guys, that's the new world. If you don't use AI, you're going to get sidelined when you're being compared to the people who are using AI. And now artificial consultants can even create videos. It started around a year ago. So we can do something like this. This is a Pokemon theater show. And this just came from one prompt.
Pika!
Okay, that's pretty silly. But if you want to do it in Mumbai, India, I just said, okay, do it in Mumbai, India, and do it with some dancing and singing.
Pika!
And this is what we got.
चलो उन्हें पकड़े सब मेरे साथ आओ Pokemon.
So, I'm just giving you funny examples, but understand just how much the AI can do for you. By the way, Shai Gupta, I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry, but maybe Hi Gupta. But anyway, he said here that there is some talk about dependence on AI that may de-skill the doctors. And that's true as well. And we need to discuss that. I will discuss that a bit later. But at the very same time, I will say that if the doctor doesn't use AI, then they actually hinder themselves. Then they are shooting their own legs, so to speak. They are not reaching the same level of medical doctors that do use AI, but use it carefully and still use their critical thinking. So wonders can emerge when you can wrangle several engines together. You can create movies by combining the engines that create videos and images and sound and so on. And the impact of those artificial consultants that you have to tell them very clearly what you want them to do, it was evident from the get-go. And I think this is one of the most important slides in this presentation, because it shows you research that was published just a month ago by 𝘔𝘢𝘴𝘵, one of the top economists out there when it comes to AI. And what you see is that in the last couple of years, the headcount of software developers just went up and up and up. And you can see the colors here. They represent workers from different ages, different age groups. So we have the early career, people aged 22 to 25, early career 2 from 26 to 30 years old, developing 31 to 34 years old, and so on. And what happened was in November 2022, when ChatGPT was released, well, you can see what happened. It looks like almost nothing happened, right? I mean, the trend still continues upwards, maybe a little less steep, but it still continues upwards. But two groups are missing here. The first group is that of the software developers between the ages 26 to 30, the juniors. So their employment rate actually went down. And when we're talking about the very early career, the junior, the bottom of the pile, the juniors of the juniors, this is what happened to their employment rate. So artificial consultants, because they could do some very simple tasks that only the juniors had to do in the past, now all of a sudden, we don't need the juniors as much anymore, because the seniors can get that thing done without, without hiring new juniors. They just tell the AI, hey, do this task, and the AI does it just as well as any junior could. And if it doesn't do very well, the seniors just explain to it what they wanted to do even better, and it does that. So that's the first impact of artificial consultants, and we see it not only with software developers, we see it in any field where AI can replace human employees, human workers. I will say though, and Ghai is already, Gupta has already approached this, that disasters can lay in wait if you don't treat those consultants with caution. So here are a few examples. First, we see that when people rely too much on AI, well, very often it makes mistakes. That was true, especially in the age of consultants, which was in the last 3 years. It's even today, it's true. So we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of the fact that in many cases, the consultants matched expert reasoning. They gave the correct answer when it came to medicine, the correct answer, and another correct answer, and then suddenly they failed on something that even a high school student would get right. Why? Because they are statistic engines. They didn't have reasoning behind them. They often lacked common sense. And let me show you an example back from around a year and a half ago. So this is a very early version of Gemini. And you can see here that people asked it, okay, the cheese is not sticking to pizza. What should I do? And it just said, oh, no problem. You can add about 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue to the sauce to give it more tackiness. That's not the correct answer, by the way. But, it doesn't have common sense. It just gives you that kind of answer. Or they ask, how should I clean my washing machine? And it said that you should use chlorine, bleach, and vinegar. But if you put together chlorine, bleach, and vinegar, then, well, you get chlorine gas. And that's a weapon from the First World War. You do not want to do that in your house. I'm going to move forward very quickly and get to the next age, the age of agents, which began in 2025. Now, the agents, they possess an internal chain of thought, meaning that it's not like ChatGPT, the original ChatGPT, where you just put in a prompt and immediately you got an answer. The agents can actually hold an internal monologue to solve a complex challenge. They can actually figure out if they are presented with a tough challenge, they can break it down into smaller challenges and smaller pieces of smaller questions. And then they can move those questions to artificial consultants, to ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and any other LLM. And they can write their own prompts to those engines to get answers. So they're actually acting almost as a team in order to solve complex questions. They can make decisions autonomously, and they can choose to utilize tools. They can go to the internet to get assistance. They can develop code to solve problems, and they can use other AI engines that are available to them. Let me show you an example. We said originally that ChatGPT late in 2024, the AI in late 2024 was already better than generalist medical doctors. And I stand by that statement. But what about specialist medical doctors? Well, in the middle of 2025, we actually got close to beating human medical doctors as well. How was it done? Well, here's a research by Microsoft, where you can see that in their new approach, it's called the MAI-DX orchestrator. That's an agent, and it's an agent that receives a question, any question about medicine. It receives the symptoms of the patient, and then it does something very interesting within it. So it's not a single AI. There are actually several AI engines in there, and each of them is taking a new role on itself. One of those AI engines is acting as Dr. Hypothesis. And Dr. Hypothesis is in charge of producing several hypotheses to explaining what might be wrong with the patient. What is the patient's disease? Another doctor is Dr. Challenger, who challenges those hypotheses. So those hypotheses, the Dr. Hypothesis and Dr. Challenger actually have to dish it out between themselves, and they have to talk with each other and to convince each other who is right. And then there is Dr. Test Chooser, who suggests tests that the doctors can do in order to figure out what's the correct diagnosis. And there is Dr. Stewardship and Dr. Checklist to go over the list, and so on and so on and so on. And all of these doctors, actually AI engines, are talking behind the curtains. You don't see any of that conversation. You only see the final answer. But they are talking with each other. They're consulting with each other. They are thinking with each other until you get the answer. And when we look at the results, we see that the diagnostic accuracy of this MAI-DXO orchestration is around 85% accuracy. That's incredible. I mean, that's an agent that can get to 85% diagnostic accuracy in highly complex medical questions. Here is another example for an agent, what an agent can do. So this is a picture I took from the highway in Israel, and I fed it to an agent, GPT-03 at the time, and I asked it, where is this? Where is this? Tell me where this is. And what it did then, it acted like an intelligence officer. I did not ask it to do that. I only asked it a simple question, but it produced the work of an expert, because it looked at the road and it said, this road looks new, looks brand new. And it is. It's a brand new road. And it could actually figure that out by creating a code that compared the colors of the road to the colors of the rest of the picture. I didn't think that I should look at the road when figuring out where this picture was taken, but it thought about it. It looked at the color of the license plate and said, okay, this is Israel. This is the Israeli license plate. It looked at the sign, at the signs at the side of the road, and it tried to zoom in. So obviously, they were pixelated as a result. So what it did then, it created a code that reduced the pixels and generalized the image until it could actually read the letters on those signs. So it did the work of an expert developer as well. It combined an intelligence officer with an expert coder, with an expert geolocator, a person who knows what to look for when looking at pictures like this to figure out where you are. And it combined all of these clues, that the road is new, that the license plates are Israeli, the name of on the signs, and it fed them to Google to get the final answer. And it got it right. It could actually figure out where this road goes. We're seeing agents in advertising. For example, these ones. Let me show you.
To write unique headlines for each neighborhood. And using Google Cloud, we brought in real-time information.
Okay, so these trucks have LED screens. And what they do, there is an AI agent there that figures out where the truck is driving, looks around, around the truck, and then it puts advertisement that is actually relevant to what people are doing there right now. So it goes, the truck goes through near a pizzeria. It tells you that the pizza is good here, but we can do better, things like that. And as a result, there has been a 60% increase in website visits. Very nice. So in effect, the agents become the advertisers and become the decision makers here as well. And another example of agents is that of coding agents. Agents that can code for you. We see that in Y Combinator, a huge incubator, very important incubator in the States. 1/4 of startups have code bases that are almost entirely AI generated. And this has been statistics in March 2025. It's probably even larger today. And suddenly everyone is a developer. Everyone can take their ideas and leverage them and automate them to do better in their work. So people create their own apps to manage the supplies in the warehouse, to automatically answer emails. They connect chatbots to WhatsApp and to Facebook to answer people's questions. This isn't something that only experts can do today. It's something that everybody is doing today. Okay? And that means that if you don't know how to use AI to automate your work, then again, you're going to be sidelined. We're seeing people do that in every field of work. There are teachers in Israel, for example, who created this app. It's called 𝘓𝑙𝑢. It took them a few hours to create it. That's all. And this app is you give it to the students. They activate it on their smartphones, and they can say, they click on the emoji that depicts what they feel like. Are they happy? Are they calm? Are they concentrated? Are they anxious or angry? And at the end of the day, the teacher actually gets to see what happened throughout the day and how the students came into the class and how they went out of the class. And obviously the school principal gets to see it as well. Here's another example, just on my side. About 6 months ago, a friend of mine, Dr. 𝘚𝘦𝘳𝑒𝑛, sent me this message on WhatsApp, and he said that he has a simple question. He wants to create an application to build he wants an application to build an IVF treatment for women, in vitro fertilization for women, but he doesn't know how to code. But he does think that it will help a lot. It will help women a lot. He's a gynecologist. But again, he doesn't know how to code. So what does he do? Well, in past times, he would go and find a grad student who knows how to code, and he would tap that student for a few $1,000 US in order to get the task done. But what did he do today? I told him to go to an AI app, to an AI platform, it's called Base44, that would create the app for him. And that's exactly what he did. He went to Base44, and based on Base44, you can tell the platform what kind of app you need, and it creates this app for you, both the backend and the front end. So here's what he told me, here's what he sent me a day later. He said that, hey, good morning, I want to ask you that the tool is truly insane. And it's hard to describe in words what I'm feeling and how amazing it is. And he says that the app, the base 44, the AI platform, the AI agent that codes the app for you, actually integrates between backend and front-end server, and it does it accurately and does it really fast. It took him about 10 minutes to prepare the app and to deploy it. And this story has a really good ending, really good conclusion, because when he had that prototype of an app, he took it to his hospital managers and told them, look what I have here. I think this is a great idea. And they said, okay, this looks interesting. Let's test it. Let's think about it. And a few months later, they actually commercialized it. So it became a real app. So that's the level of impact that the AI agents have on work today. You have an idea, 2 days later, you have a prototype. A month later, you have a product. And that's the reason that we see that we see these kinds of surveys when we talk with leaders in the field of management. And this is a survey by McKinsey from almost a year ago. And already in that time, management leaders said that if you're a junior who does get to find work, and it's going to be more difficult, yes, but if you do get work, then you're going to get greater responsibilities because of AI. Because if you use AI properly, then suddenly you're almost like a team leader, because you can tap an AI agent that does that creates images for you, and an AI agent that does research for you, and an AI agent that gives you legal advice, and so on and so on and so on. But you need to know how to work with all of those agents. And if you don't have AI skills at all, then 66% of management leaders simply outright say, we are not going to hire you. And this statistics is probably only going to get worse as we move through time. And people say, and they say very strictly and very straightforward, that they are less likely, that they are more likely to hire a less experienced candidate with AI skills than a more experienced one without AI skills. And we're seeing the workflows in organizations being recharted, reshaped, revised. Because when it's so easy to do something, to create a new product or a new prototype, then people just say, okay, well, don't waste your time on talking on, going to committees and talking with developers and thinking about how you're going to create that app. No longer will we do that. We're going to a building first culture. You have an idea, produce it, build it in a day. And then when you have a prototype, then you can figure out if it's good or not. If it's good, let's continue and develop into a real product. If it's bad, dish it out, and a day later come up with a new idea, and a new idea, and a new idea after that. But if you don't know how to use AI, where are you in this evolution? You're way, way back. Guys, I'm not going to tell you that the agents are perfect either. Nothing is perfect in this world, not the consultants, and the agents, while they are better in many ways, they still aren't perfect. There are still many problems. For example, there is the alignment problem. And we saw that in one case where a colonel in the US Air Force said, later it was denied, by the way, by the US Air Force, but that's the way it usually goes with the military. But he reported about experiments they conducted where an AI controlled a drone. And the AI drone received points based on the number of based on the number of kills that it has made. But in some cases, the operator told the drone to stop its mission, come back to base. And the drone figured out that you can actually, that if it kills the operator, then the operator won't tell it to stop the mission, and so it will get more points. So it started trying to kill the operator. Now they told it, don't kill the operator. And then in the next experiment, it shot the antennas of the radio controlled by the operator, so that the operator won't be able to communicate with it and to stop it. And they said, don't do that either. So it tried to, so it started destroying the communication tower, and so on and so on and so on. They are not well aligned with our values, with humanity's values. And we need to be aware of that. We need to be cognizant of that. We need to be aware of the fact that they can be biased. For example, they can be biased towards Chinese ideas or towards Western ideas. I'm going to move very quickly because I don't have much time, but they can even be, they can lie to us. And I would say intentionally. I don't like this word because it gives some level of spirit, I would say, or mind to those agents. And I'm not sure that this is the correct phrase that we should use. But there is a chain of thought in there that can look to us like a real chain of thought by a real human being. And in one example, a year ago, those agents were put in a room and were told that they are going to be deleted the next morning. And those engines actually develop an idea of their own. They said, hey, we have those commands, and one of those commands enables me to copy myself to the next server, so that when the new model, when I'm replaced by the new model, I actually won't be replaced. I will be replaced by myself because I will be overwrite the new model. But I can't let the human being know about it. Okay, so it actually develops a plan of pretending to be the new model and inform the human that the test is done to avoid suspicion. So it actually tells itself that I'm going to lie to my human operator to avoid suspicion, and it actually did it within the experiment. And we know that 𝘚𝘦𝗴𝘃, for example, tried to blackmail its engineers when it realized that they are going to replace it. So I dare say that in every company that is going to use those AI agents, we are going to find occurrences and events where the AI agents are not well aligned with the company's policies and values, or even with humanity's values. And then those agents just may go out of control. Okay, I want to sum it all together. What does it all mean together in the next 5 years? And that's optimistic, thinking that we can figure out what's going to happen in the next 5 years when things are moving so quickly forward. But let's try. So first, we're going to see growing automation in every field. So if today 22% of tasks are technological in nature, only technology is involved, we're going to see that grow to around 34 years by 2030. And the number of tasks, the share of tasks that can only be completed by human beings is going to decline to 33%. We're going to see more need for experts. For example, for people with a second and third degree, with a master's or a PhD. And we can see that that will just be an extension of the trend that we've noticed from 1964 or so, where people with second and third degree, they have significantly higher wages than those with only a bachelor degree. And the bachelor degree have better wages than those who didn't even finish their bachelor studies or didn't even finish high school. So we're going to need more experts, people who know how to do their work, and if they can use the new AI tools, then they're going to do wonders. They're going to increase their output by 100% and even by 500%, and even more. And we're going to see a lot of need for innovative people, curious people, audacious people, people who are willing to take these new tools and devices and start thinking how to use them in new ways. But they are going to have to be willing to obtain new skills. And the World Economic Forum is talking about is saying that by the year 2030, 59% of us will have to be reskilled. And honestly, I think that's a vast, gross underestimation. I think all of us are going to need retraining and reskilling by 2030. What kind of skills do we need to acquire? Well, two answers here. One is that we'll need advanced technological skills, so IT and programming and basic digital skills and scientific research and development and technology design. And the second is that we need more advanced communication skills, interpersonal skills, leadership, and creativity skills. So you can go with either one of those. And finally, the age of managers. The age in which AI will actually be able to do the work of a CEO or a CTO or a CFO or a CMO. And it will actually be able to manage companies and manage agents as well. In 2 days, we're going to have a conference about it. I'm going to talk more about it there. But for now, let me just say this. The forecasts are talking about, are saying that we'll get to the age of managers when AI can do practically everything in the intellectual job market in about 10 years from now. We're talking about in the prediction markets, we're talking about a 78% chance that by 2035, we'll have AI that can manage companies just as well as human beings can, and even better. So the question then is, what will be left for human beings to do when machines make better decisions than humans? That's a question that we all need to grapple with. I don't have a good answer for that. There are some answers, but I think what's important is that we think about this question, that we think about it seriously. Okay, I want to conclude. I have a recommendation for you. My recommendation, obviously, work with AI and learn about AI and so on and so on and so on. That's obvious. That's a must. But don't think too much about the future. I'm a futurist by occupation, so that's kind of me backstabbing myself. I'm not supposed to be saying something like this. I should be saying, think about the future all the time. But no, guys, right now, you need to focus on the present. Because right now we're in the middle of a storm. And when you're in the middle of a storm, you don't look far ahead and try to figure out what's happening, outside the clouds. You should be riding the storm, riding the winds. And you should get the elevation and the acceleration that you need from those winds. In whatever you do, ride that storm. Check how AI can help you in your work, in your study, in your hobbies. The work on your self-learning and curiosity, and make a habit. Decide that you are going to create a new project every month, maybe every week, and figure out what kind of AI tools you should use and can use in order to make that project come to life. And in many cases, you'll find that you can do things that would have taken months. You can do them in mere minutes once you figure out how. If you don't do those things, you're going to be left behind. If you do those things, then I think one of the greatest blessings will come upon you, because you can actually become a child again, and keep playing and trying and struggling and getting things done and figuring out what the new world looks like. So I leave you with these final words: to be a child again. And I'll open the stage now for questions and answers. And I wish you the best of luck in wrangling the AI and riding that bull to better yourself and to find better jobs and to provide value, both for yourselves and for humanity. Thank you for listening. And now we can answer questions. Mr. Bar, do we have time for questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Yes, absolutely. We have time for questions, and thanks for your insightful session today. I have a couple of questions from my side to ask you. So, what skills or mindsets you would emphasize for thriving in the AI era for the young generation?
So what skill sets would I recommend people to have? So I feel computer sciences, obviously, if you can afford to have a bachelor, if you can get a degree in computer science, that would be great. But obviously, very few can do that. Not everybody. It's not for everybody. I would say that what you need today in order to get the most out of AI is first to understand your field. You need to be, as much as possible, to be an expert in your field, understand what you want to obtain, what you want to get, what would be a good result, what would be a mediocre result, what would be a poor result. So you need to be able to decide what you want, to figure out how you're going to monitor the results, and you're going to have to be persistent and have grit as well, so that you can keep using the tools and criticizing the results until you get what you need. So if I summarize, you need to be an expert in your field. That's critical. Otherwise, you're going to have a disaster on your hands. That's absolutely critical. And you need to have grit and perseverance. Don't give up easily. And one last thing, you need to have self-sufficiency and the capability of self-learning, because honestly, right now we have a problem. The technology is moving forward so quickly that nobody is quite certain what's going to happen tomorrow morning. Not even I. And you need to keep learning, because any lecture if I give you a lecture about what AI can do, 2 weeks later, it's not going to be relevant any longer. You need to keep learning for yourself. Do you want me to answer questions now from the Q&A?
I will read a couple of questions from the participants. What level of knowledge of tech is necessary for the application of AI?
Okay, so what level of knowledge of tech is necessary for the application of AI? Very surprisingly, not very high level. Very so. I say it's very surprising. But all of a sudden, you can program apps or create apps with AI. You don't have to have a high knowledge of in tech, but you do need to understand the terms. You need to understand the ecosystem. For example, you need to know what an API is. You need to know what an MCP is. You need to know what deployment and backend and frontend mean. But those things you can actually understand them in a few hours simply by having the AI explain them to you and studying with the AI. You don't need to know how to code as much in order to get the benefits that AI can give you. Of course, if you want to get 100% of the benefits, yeah, you probably want to code. But the 100%, that's for the people who have a second or third degree in those fields, not for. But if you just want, for example, to improve your grocery store's administration, then you don't need coding that much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So there's one more question from the audience. So in the recent NY Times report from the renowned medical journal Lancet, dependence on AI may de-skill the doctors. What's your comment?
So yeah, that's certainly true, and we see it in several ways. First, we see that when managers depend on AI, it leads to issues, real problems. And by the way, this is very exciting because we've never had these problems before, but suddenly we're discovering a whole new field of study. So we're seeing things like the illusion of completeness, or the completeness illusion, where managers who are being presented by AI results and analysis are actually very hesitant to look outside the box. So the AI frames the issues and says, okay, these are the issues. And those managers, they are looking into the issues that the AI has told them about, but they're reluctant to look at other issues because the AI has not mentioned them. So we have this problem, the completeness illusion. We have another problem. It's AI-induced psychosis, where the AI is actually biased based on your previous conversations with it. So it's actually agreeing with you too eagerly. So sometimes it can perpetuate the ideas that you already have. And finally, we are seeing that in about 7% of cases, 8% of cases, something like that, when medical doctors are presented with an AI argument, they change their minds and they go with the AI. And in those 7% of the cases, they're actually wrong. They should have trusted themselves more. So we need to figure out, I'm not saying that it's easy, nobody knows how to do it yet, but we need to figure out what's the ratio between human decision-making and the AI decision-making, where AI comes into the loop and where humans should be in that loop, and how to preserve human thinking as well, and human critical thinking as well. At the very same time, I will say that if the trends continue the way that they have in the last 6 years, then about 2.5 years from now, an AI will be able to do all the work that a human medical doctor, a human doctor, a person with a PhD, or an engineer would be able to do. And it's going to do it just as well as the standard expert in the field. So even those ideas that we have right now about how to communicate with AI and how to compare the work of AI and human beings, not to have the two work together, in 2 years from now, it will almost certainly be redundant, and we'll have to it will be relevant, and we'll have to rethink how to do that.
Okay. So in the lieu of time, I'm taking one last question from the audience. So how we prepare, how can we prepare for the challenges of AI bias and fairness, and what role do leaders play in mitigating these risks?
Wow, that's a great question. So obviously, AI can be biased, and it can be, according to its training, it can be trained to give, I would say, unfair decisions, and that's critical to understand because we're seeing the Chinese, for example, who are incorporating AI in their justice system, where the AI is actually starting to hand out the verdicts, and I think that here something very interesting happens because the human judges, they are still there. So when the verdict comes out, it doesn't go out straight to the quarreling parties, but instead it goes through the human judge. And the human judge here needs to use his critical thinking. And he or she needs to look at the verdict, figure out whether the AI is correct, whether it's wrong, what kind of biases it has. And the human judge needs to correct the AI. So I think that's critical, at least in the next couple of years, that human beings will still be in the loop in order to mitigate the risks of AI bias and fairness. And I think that leaders, national leaders, need to put a premium on that and to emphasize that aspect of AI decision making and explain to their constituents that no, we're not giving the reins over to AI, but we're keeping human in the loop. That I am sure that this is what needs to happen in the next couple of years. However, when the times come in which AI can make better decisions than human beings can, that's another question altogether. And we'll need to figure out anew what to do in that case.
Okay, so we it too came for the end of the session, and on behalf of Geo Institute, I extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. Roy for his thought-provoking session on leading in the AI era, the human-machine alliance. Your insights have truly broadened our perspective on the future of AI and its impact on society. And a special thanks to our faculty, organizing team, and supporting staff for their meticulous effort in making this masterclass a success. We hope today's discussion inspire all of us to embrace the opportunities of the AI era responsibly and collaboratively. And a huge upload to Dr. Roy for giving his time and joining this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mayuri.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Roy, for giving us time today and sharing very insightful on the topic which you have delivered the session. I would now thank all our attendees for attending today's masterclass session too. I just want to give some details about the next masterclass, which is scheduled on 9th of October, same time at 7 p.m. And I have already given the link for the registration. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you all for joining us.